Hi everyone, today I wanted to do a video on how to use a chorus effect on your vocals. First, I just wanted to say that if you're interested in this content, please subscribe below so that you can get updates whenever I upload new videos to the channel. Normally when we use a chorus effect on vocals, we're aiming to expand the fullness of that sound, as a dry vocal can often sound very thin and not as large as we might want it to be. One of the reasons that dry vocals tend to sound so underwhelming when you first put them into a mix is that it's usually just one person singing a line of music. When you listen to a pop song on the radio or any other professionally produced piece of music, producers usually like to simulate a larger group of vocalists singing the same line. Two key characteristics of multiple vocalists performing at once are slight differences in pitch and slight differences in their timing. These are things that the chorus effect actually does a very good job simulating. Chorus effects also tend to add a certain amount of movement to sustain notes or sounds. This can be helpful because the static nature of sustained notes can sometimes be somewhat boring to the listener. First, let's talk about what a chorus effect actually is. What a chorus effect does is it duplicates your original signal and it aims to delay it just slightly. So already we've accomplished a difference in timing. After the signal is delayed, it is then modulated by an LFO wave. If you're unfamiliar with LFO waves, they stand for low frequency oscillators. These waves are below our frequency range of hearing, so we won't be able to distinguish a pitch from them, but we will be able to use them to manipulate certain characteristics of our sound. In this case, the LFO is going to modulate the delay time between our dry signal and our delayed signal. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a session that I've been working on, and we can manipulate some of the aspects of this LFO and see what the effects are. As you can see over here in my channel strip, I have a certain number of plugins lining the dry signal. Here's just a quick overview of the plugins that I've applied. I have pitch correction up first, just to be sure that all of the notes that I'm singing are adjusted to be very fine-tuned. I then have a channel EQ to be sure that I've removed any undesirable frequencies, and that I've boosted frequencies that I'd like to accent. I've then applied two compressors, one harder compressor and one softer, in order to be sure that I've limited my dynamic range just slightly. Then a de-esser, which is similar to a compressor, but only acts on my S sounds. This makes it so they aren't so grating to the ear. And then a small room reverb, just to be sure that even though it's the dry signal, it still has a small bit of space. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the signal with all of these bass plugins applied. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. The first thing that you might notice is that this is actually a mono track that I'm working with. That is one of those aspects that's really giving this a very thin quality, especially when putting it into the rest of the mix, like this. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. That's why instead of adding a chorus effect to this mono channel strip, I'm going to send this mono channel strip to a stereo channel which contains the chorus effect. As you can see here, I've designated bus 2 to be my vocal chorus send. Now we can finally open up that chorus plugin and see all of its different components. As you can see, we have the following options. We have rate, intensity, a D mode button, as well as a mix knob. In order to understand how these knobs function, we need to remember the LFO wave that we discussed earlier. Starting with the mix knob, the mix is the blend between our original dry signal and the delayed signal that this chorus effect is going to layer on top. With our mix set at 0, we will hear nothing but the dry signal moving into the chorus effect, therefore we would hear no change. With the mix set at 100%, we would therefore hear nothing but the delayed signal. Since we're working with a send here, and we'll be able to blend the amount of that send volume later, I like to set the chorus mix to 100%. This way we can have complete control and understanding of the effect that we've created through the chorus plugin. Now let's talk about the intensity. The intensity is nothing more than the size, or depth, of the LFO wave that we're using to modulate our delay time. Let's try starting with a low intensity and gradually increasing the intensity to see a greater impact of that LFO wave begin to take place. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Obviously, it began to have much more of an impact on the signal, and it became very distracting the more the LFO wave became present. Therefore, if you want a very subtle modulation, something that does just enough to recreate that difference in timing, then I'd recommend keeping this parameter at 25% or lower. The rate brings us back to the actual frequency value of the LFO wave. Since our ears can distinguish pitch above 20 Hz, this LFO rate can only rise to 20 Hz. The lower the frequency value, the slower our LFO wave is going to act on our delay modulation. Let's take a look and see how that rate impacts the LFO's effect on our signal. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Just as I mentioned with the intensity parameter, it's important to keep this subtle if all you're wanting is a slight variation in timing and pitch. The D mode on this plugin can be set to either on or off. When on, it provides a spatial filtering effect that aims to produce a very vintage sound. Let's listen to it with it off and with it on. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Now we've talked about all of the different parameters on the chorus effect plugin. Let's go ahead and listen to the difference that we've made in regards to how this track stands out in the mix. First, let's listen again with just our mono track. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. And now again with our chorus send active. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Be sure that you go and fine-tune the amount of send volume that you want incorporated into this layering. Let's listen one more time and experiment with the amount of send volume that we allow into the mix. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. Fell asleep and the underground's breaking its silence. I hope you found this video helpful, and I also hope you'll subscribe for more production and theory content.